Well, thank you very much. One of the first things I'd like to do is actually, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my family, so I'd like to have some people stand up, but keep standing, as I mentioned. My family, if we could please stand up. Past. My partner, Chung-Yoo, and our staff, past and present. And the multitude of people that we collaborated with all through the town, our contractors, and then one of my key people that I brought to this event was my professor, Len Singer, who's at the front row with his wife. He was the guy that gave me my first client in 1978. So he was an extremely tough professor. He took no bullshit from anybody, didn't graduate the laggards. It's not like today. Today, they cry on our shoulders and we let them go, but he didn't take any of that crap. So thank you very much, everyone, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everyone's support. One of the things that is really kind of relevant for me to think about is coming from a little village in Poland where there was 500 people in the village. I start out the talk showing a picture of my cousin, Mary, who's married to my cousin, Jan Lawrence. He's married to first cousins in town. I'm a product of a couple cousins, too. Not totally retarded. But here's my cousin throwing rocks at goats, keeping them away from Richie, Julie, and Paul, my kids. The goats were eating their pants, so she kept them away. We saw her this summer, so she's been there forever. And I could have been there forever. The cool thing about this world is I came from a town in Poland. It used to be in central Poland before World War II until the Russians took half of it. We were in the middle. Actually, I got a little short story for Meta Design guy was talking about. He was talking about being from Berlin. You can see the picture of Berlin right there. And he said, I am from the country of Germany, and the country of Germany, you know, is next to the Soviet Union. And I said, excuse me, the Führer did not win. So this is my country of Poland, my house that my father built with his hands. And this is me, squinting and thinking about the future and having this awesome bike. So I come to the United States with those pants that I had, but I also came to the United States and my parents bought me a 26-inch bike and I was a little shrimp like that and I had to jump on it. I missed my Polish bike. So here's the transportation systems in we have MARTA here, pretty lucky. So I came from in a military vehicle, literally, to a train that had a toilet that didn't flush, but it went on the tracks. It's really scary. And come to Warsaw, and I take a bath in a bathtub. I saw a TV. It was amazing. And then I come to Chicago, and the guy that picks us up, my aunt's tenant, he has a Cadillac with windows that go down, and there's traffic. There's no ox carts like you just saw a minute ago. It was a pretty awesome country. Great opportunities, the land of opportunities. So what I'm thinking about is I want to be a designer. I want to be an artist. So my parents said, no, you don't be an artist. You're not going to make any money. You're going to starve. So we had a friend from the Polish government. He says, you have to go to the Bauhaus. The American Bauhaus is in Chicago, but you should be an architect. There's a guy named Mies van der Rohe who's running this program. So I signed up for my SAT scores, however, were not right for architecture, so I didn't get in. And wonderful building, and I go to the student center, and I see someone in the student center, and I said, well, I think I'm going to try to sneak into the program. So I got into industrial design thinking I'm going to go to industrial design, and then I'm going to go transfer upstairs. So I get to these professors like Len, and we had these amazing things that we're doing, and I see what they're doing up there. And I see this quote on the other side is actually, I was driving a car and photographing this billboard in Berlin, and I thought, emptiness. This is what I saw was emptiness. I go upstairs and I see these little Mises drawing all these lines, and I thought, man, this is going to be a career that I'm going to get into. And here I am realizing I could just jump and fly, and literally fly. So here I am in Len Singer's class. We get this amazing opportunity to fly a sailplane, to design a cockpit, to design all the instrumentation, build full mock-ups. It was just an amazing opportunity, and I look back at the Mises upstairs, and they're drawing these perfect graphite lines, and I thought, man, that's a drag. That's no fun. This is amazing. So in that same class, I had, with Len, we had a human factors class where we looked at how people react in spaces and how they react with products or environments. So two of us, actually three of us, but there was one lazy guy. He got his name on there. But Peter Wachter and myself got to this, we did this research for with the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. And Jack Catlin was the director of this facility, and he was we were doing research on how you use a wheelchair in urban uses and how things are terrible. It's nothing like today. You don't have these curbs and things like that. So we actually rode the wheelchair for 2 days, and we photographed Jack with all the things that were problematic, curbs, sewer openings that would sink that in, or doors that you couldn't pull open. So we looked at all these things, put together a document for Len's class, and we stayed up like 4 nights. And we come in, and the 4th day we're taking a test with Len, and I wound up getting a C. He gave me a C because he was pity on me because we worked so hard. Should have probably given me a D. But we worked so hard, and then the Rehab Institute actually published this as a booklet. It wasn't a full book, talking about all the impediments that you have as a handicapped person in an environment. So it was a great success, and really, through the pushing of professors like Len is where I got to. So I look at things. I was traveling through Poland with my son Richard, and we encountered a couple towns. So you encounter these towns in your travels. They're just so bad. So it's so bad, man. And then you see something, that's nice, it's nice. And then you see something that's damn nice. But this is in Slovakia. It's called Dominica. It's not damn nice, but sometimes you see something so damn nice. Rarely do you see that in America, though, because everything's just kind of like, This is in Hungary, though. This was unbelievable. It was like the Wizard of Oz. It looked like a Photoshop trick, but it really was real. So you look for you can't find damn nice. So my mission is to try to make damn nice. So the opportunities I had when I first was about to embark on my own firm, I got the opportunity from Mises' office to design an award for IIT, and it was given to Buckminster Fuller the first year. So we designed the sculpture, the graphics, had an opportunity to spend an evening with Buckminster Fuller and his wife. So the thing that I really have enjoyed over the years is to meet people of this caliber over the years that have designed things that I could learn from. They're all accessible. They're all available to you if you just choose to contact people of this level. The greatest opportunity I had before starting my own firm was to design the Target logo. We designed the Target identity. So I was 22 years old, was the sole designer of the firm, had the opportunity to design the logo, had the opportunity to design storefronts, time studies, human factors analysis. It was an amazing opportunity. And then Len comes along, and he says, I got this client who's doing these equipments for testing petrochemicals, and they look like they're made in a bad garage. And they don't have an identity. They're selling their equipment to petrochemical companies. And we got in. I got a chance to meet with them. That was my first client in 1978, thanks to Len Singer. So in product design, we design things with calipers. We are very careful about the dimensionality, the joint lines and everything. Maybe not as much on this, but the next one a little more. But we had to be very careful in terms of how we articulated this. So what we did, what I learned from this was that design done right can make something rather benign have a brand, have an identity, have it be saleable, have it be marketable in the marketplace. So within 10 years, this company sold for $100 million to a Japanese outfit. Unfortunately, I had no stock in the company, but it was just a great success. So coming to Atlanta in 1981, one of the things we got was a product for linear business systems. So on the right side, you'll see some mock-ups that are done all out of cardboard. We did amazing mock-ups just out of paper, and then the final product. The thing that I found about this goal was that product design was interesting, but it wasn't enamorably interesting for me in terms of the possibilities that it had. So in this is before I moved to Atlanta, I decided to take a cross-country trip, and I learned everything that I know today about placemaking. So I'm taking a cross-country trip to the West Coast, to the East Coast. We wound up in Nothing, Arizona. So this is the recipe for my success right here. It's got the logo. It's pointing to the right. It's really good. It's got it's AAA rated, check. It's got a motto. The motto is really short and brief. Hey! And it has the city hall is amazing. We, the staunch people of nothing, believe in nothing, feel for nothing, et cetera, et cetera. The mayor is there. It says, fire, eat inside. And then the other thing, we do wayfinding at SEGD. We look at, where the hell am I? And it says, you are here. You know you're there, for God's sakes. You get there, you know you're there, you can have a drink, and it says, tain't much. That's a secondary logo, by the way. So one of our first projects here was for Cousins Properties, an amazing real estate operation here. And what we did for Cousins was we developed a brand for a project they had here at Wildwood. And one of the lovely things that I learned about that was looking at materials, looking at how we could look at how materials could make a success of a form. So this particular form we made out of solid granite. This one we made out of aluminum. Actually, Gary Stewart's company built that tall 30-foot piece that we went out there almost every day. We were so damn excited about it. He had some project manager guy that I think told Gary that he was going to weld me into that sign if I show up there one more time. Because I was so possessive of this thing. This was so awesome. I forget his name, George something. This is our studio in Roswell. We got a 100-year-old building that we expanded onto. It's a really lovely place next to a national park. I live about 300 feet away. This is some of our staff that you'll meet here. We have a staff of approximately 10. We've got one person in Shanghai that runs our Shanghai office. We've got one person in Charlotte that works remotely. We don't have any work in Charlotte. We used to. And then we have another person in Chicago. So we do a variety of things. We do all the way down to theme parks in Japan to site sculptures. The middle slide with the site sculptures is Chung's first project in 1988 when he joined the firm. One of the honors we had a few years ago with Therese Huffman's husband and her husband Ron was to design the gateways to Georgia. We designed the elements at each of the entry points to the interstate highways. And it was using Georgia marble, Georgia granite. Therese Huffman created the icons and logos. The unfortunate thing about this project was that, the fortunate thing was it was on the blue signs. The blue signs funded $24 million of installation here. But winter came along, and a lot of people were complaining about the stainless steel toilet seats at the visitor centers. They're sitting down on these things, and damn, it's so painful. So it goes to the legislature. We got to replace these toilet seats. All these people are complaining about the damn toilet seats. So this project has yet to be built. So over the years, we've done several categories of different projects. We started out with real estate developers, the TAP sign, which is around the corner, the sign on the 191 building. We didn't get hired on the first round. Philip Johnson, I guess, was alive. He didn't want to hire us, but Cousins hired us to do the job. But I think Philip is pretty happy. We integrated it. Actually, David Park, who's here from Nashville, did an amazing job on this, the middle canopy that you saw here. We do retail design. We do accent pieces within the projects, like site sculptures within the environments. And for example, this one on the left side, Christiana Mall, General Growth Properties, had this building, had this atrium, and it started to sag. So they put a column in the middle, and it said, that column doesn't look too good. Can you guys help out? So we put something nicer around the column so it didn't look like a fuck up. This is a project in Orlando where we did some cryptic sketches on what we could do to identify this 1,000-acre development right outside of downtown Orlando. And what we did here was we designed a conceptual sketch, and the client kind of liked it, and they took it to the city, and the city financed it through a TIF funding, which was really pretty cool, $2 million installation. So it was one of our first bridges that we were able to improve. This is a retail project in Vancouver, British Columbia, where we take typography and we have a little bit of fun with it. It looks ordinary from the front, but you come around the back, it has a little different look. So detailing longevity of the elements, that Wildwood sign has been there for 35 years. So a lot of our designs are not temperamental, that they're going to fade and be useless after a couple of years. Quality of construction is extremely important. When we started working with Gary's firm, Design South, they were just very, very up on the kind of quality. We work with Henry Signs. They understand the kind of quality that we're after. We detail them very heavily. We got an opportunity to work with Gaylord, and we've repositioned all the wayfinding systems at the Gaylord resorts around the country. That particular project landed us, Gaylord landed us to do work with SEGD Design, which we've been working with for almost 20 years now, designing all their casinos. So sometimes you develop a relationship, whether a fabricator like Henry that we've worked with for almost 35 years, or with clients like TVS, Cooper Carey. Locally, we've worked with them for close to 40 years now. So the work that we do is different than many of our competitors. So I was kind of shocked that we got the SEGD award, because we're not just signage designers, we're not just graphic designers. We look at the materials, we look at the gateways, we wind up looking at architecture in the spaces. This is a project for Rick Periani. Rick probably was one of the first ones to let us flex our muscles, I think, because everybody put us in a box saying, you're environmental graphic designers, you go ahead and do the signs. So Rick got us on the team. We looked at how we were going to put that Irish fence together. We designed the towers. We designed a wind farm. We designed a marketing center, and he took it to the architects that his son currently works for, ELM, in Jacksonville, and they realized it. But the opportunities that we got, that kind of got me an itch in terms of learning more about architecture. One of the things that came along at that point was, well, let me just keep going here. This is some of the hospitality work for Hyatt Regency at 3 different locations. This is some recent work for TVS and SEGD Design for convention facilities in China, in Savannah, in Charlotte, and in Oklahoma. We do probably a third of our work is in casino and gaming. So we do a lot of thematic design work. We create environments, not just design the signs, but design the environments. John Ryan is in the audience. He designed some of the illustrations in the space in here. So we work with artists, with other creative people to collaborate with. We do conventional signage, but when we get involved in things like this for North Carolina State, what we did here was we looked at how we would operate as environmental graphics, but also how we would operate as a product designer. So we designed it in such a way that the shops could actually manufacture some of these signs in case Bobby were to hit the sign on Friday. They could fix it by Sunday and have a sign up. So sculpture, materials, we look at a variety of materials. How could we use glass in a very interesting way? In that particular project in the middle, it was kind of interesting. The client brought us in. They wanted something unique in the lobby as a directory. We designed this piece that weighed like 6 tons, and he liked it so much, he said, "Oh, I'll spend $15,000 on a beam to hold this thing up. Why not?" So sometimes we get nice clients like that find an extra few bucks. One of our guys, I don't know if he's in the audience, Brett Gerald was one of our first staff, and Brett went on to become an industrial designer, and he said, "Boy, I'm working with diversified products in Auburn, Alabama, and the thing about product design is you got to figure out that, that 5-cent nut that's going on there is going to be expensive, and we're getting it more or less close to something. So because our stuff is really one of a kind." So then I decided to go to school at architecture to learn about space design. The person that got me inspired is no longer with us, Doug Allen. And Doug Allen, I talked to Doug, I said, "I'm getting kind of bored. We're into our 3rd recession here. I decided to go back to school with 3 young children and figure out I want to become a stronger designer, not necessarily becoming an architect, because it's probably a big pain in the ass to be an architect. But I asked Doug, I said, "Well, so should I go for landscape architecture or for architecture?" And he says, "Oh, no, go for architecture, because you can't get pushed around. The architects always want to push you around, but if you're an architect, maybe they won't push you around as much." So finished the degree here. The thing that was really cool about Georgia Tech, I learned about architectural history, landscape history. That's one thing we did not learn at IIT. IIT was all about the future. IIT was not about the past. And the thing that's really important is context and history. So it's just such a beautiful world that you can see that inventing the new is not always the right direction. So here we are inventing the new here, but what we're doing here is we're designing a museum, a children's museum from the inside out. We created the program, we created the exhibits, we created actually the building envelope with an architect collaborator in North Carolina. Getting opportunities to do exhibit design. Exhibit design is about storytelling. Actually, all of this stuff is about storytelling. It's about marketing and crafting a good story. So we've got a company that is distributing building materials, rebar, I-beams, etc., for the residential construction trade. How do you animate something like that that's very inanimate? So we took the product, we developed a storyline in terms of the timeline, and we created an animated space within this warehouse in Denver, Colorado, to talk about those aspects. Because what was missing in this sales center is the warehouse was missing. The guys that were selling this product had no idea what this product was. They could be selling high-tech equipment one day, they could be selling something else. So we wanted to get that across. We also wanted to get across to Wall Street, what is that repositioning that they were doing for this company? How do you get that communicated across graphically, 3-dimensionally? On a higher-end product, we were honored to have an opportunity to design the story of Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So what we did was we were wedged in between a Caesar Pelli building and an old 1950s building, and we created the space that was acoustically pure, that used elements from the I don't know if any of you have seen Being John Malkovich, but they had a half floor. They had floor 7.5, where you'd go into and you'd have to, crouch over. And we found all this stuff on floor 7.5 and brought that down, used some of the things. I carried that 1912 thing. It cracked in half. I don't know, it was 2 tons. I couldn't carry it very far. We had an opportunity to work with Stevens & Wilkinson. Stevens & Wilkinson was hired here to redo 2 of the warehouse hangars for Delta Airlines. And what we did here was we told a story of the prop age and the jet age, and we got the the shop people so excited about the project that they gave us some of the landing gear for the columns. They gave us, they made the airplane up in the upper right is a replica of the crop dusting plane that started Delta Airlines in Louisiana. And the real one was in Smithsonian, and Smithsonian wasn't willing to give it up. So the shop guys got so excited that they built the aircraft. They bought an engine, but they built the entire aircraft in their shop where they service 747s. We do trade shows, a number of trade shows a year, but we take a different approach to trade shows. We try to do immersive environments where you can get a sense of the space. We don't. One of the things that I'd like to, when I talk to Jim Budd, who's here this evening, or Steve, is talk about how industrial designers are generally hired for the job of doing these trade shows. And industrial designers are doing things that are products and things like that, so they don't understand immersive spaces very well. So if they were to take some courses within architecture or something to understand how immersion is important as opposed to any of these things being a bunch of tabletops, would just not make the same brand image. The other thing that was pretty exciting is the image on the left, bottom left, was through my courses here at Tech with Doug Allen. We talked about the agora and the spaces within the Greek cities. So some of that information even formed my knowledge of how I was going to create some of these micro spaces. After designing a few of these things, I was honored by SEGD to be able to write a book on exhibit design, but I didn't find that I had the time to do the entire book, so I brought in two collaborators. One, Craig Berger, who was in charge of education, who collected all the material, and Lee Skolnick out of New York, who wrote the intro to the history of how exhibits were created back in the days of Smithsonian. And it was translated into Polish, Russian, Chinese, and Korean. Many of these photographs, by the way, are shot by the famous Ryan Rizzo sitting in the audience. And this was several shots that we sat there. We got these chairs, and we're trying to figure out with Ryan, what the hell? How are we going to give personality to these chairs? He's looking at me. He says, "These are really ugly chairs." And he's saying, "But I can make them look pretty." And he did. We had the opportunity to compete in a competition for Sandy Springs enhancement. There's a hole in the ground right now at Sandy Springs that, you look down there, and yep, that's a spring. It looked like a sewer. And we had the opportunity to design a streetscape and a pavilion and more honorific space for the bubbling crude that's in there. In 1996, I was happily married to Sung Kim in Las Vegas. We honeymooned there. And then we started doing work in Korea. So, but one thing before, everywhere I go, I want to learn about the culture, which has been really very fortunate about the international work that we do. So spending a week over there, learning about materials, how are they put together? I mean, look at the beauty of the materials that they do, just the stonework itself. And looking at what are materials that we have at our disposal that we can use there. So the partnership with Sung resulted in several projects for Samsung that we did over the years. This was the biggest coup. We got an opportunity to do an art commission for a hand that was in Frankfurt, Germany, Kiev, and Toronto. And as you can see, that's kind of an old handset there, but the idea was the handset would change every 2 weeks, that they issue a new one. We collaborated with many landscape architectural firms. EDSA is a client on this one, SWA is another one, but the idea that people have brought us on and they trusted us to do things beyond just doing that Jack Nicklaus Korea sign. We designed the fountain, we designed the runnels, we designed the landscape, hardscape elements in this piece. So the more that people trust us, the more they'll get out of us. The more they box us in, we'll give them what they paid us for, and we'll get the opportunity with somebody else. But we've been fortunate to have more trusting clients than not. This is our Middle East office. It's cheap rent. And this is our partner, Sajid, who's in Dubai. in Dubai, we had the opportunity to design a new city, and these were examples of the kind of a Turkish Islamic vernacular that we created for the clubhouse. And the client that was on board at that time wanted something that was from Czechoslovakia or something. And I said, you know, why Czechoslovakia in the middle of the desert? Doesn't even relate to anything. So we managed to talk her out of it, and it went more of it to an Islamic vernacular. I want to talk a little bit about wayfinding in cities. And this is a project that we had received in Libya before the big blow up over there. And what we did was we look at these projects, we look at how they're used from an urban design standpoint, from a master planning standpoint. We look at where decision points are made vehicular, where they're made from a pedestrian standpoint. And the one thing that, I don't know if any of you have traveled to the Middle East or even to the Asia, but there's no street signs. There's no names to streets. So when I first went there in 2005, we didn't have a smartphone back then, but we had a fax. So someone would fax us a picture of their grainy building, and we'd have to show it to the cab driver, and Sajid would have to take us to some place next to a McDonald's. And I think Bear is very familiar with all that directionality, but it's gotten a little bit better. So the idea was that we wanted to introduce this street naming. And they had, every street here was named Tripoli Waterfront Boulevard. Okay, how do I get there? So we named every street something different. We said, you can name it whatever you want to. We're just talking about something here. So you go ahead and name each of these districts a different name. The other thing, which was like brain surgery, is a street address. Oh my God. First time I was in Japan, Chung is familiar with that because I think it's the same thing in Korea. You show up and you got building number 7 on Fujimura Street. You go to building number 2 and you think, yeah, it's right over there. No. They issue the addresses when the building is built. So building 7 is next to 612. You don't know where the hell it is. Now that you have, you know, GPS, I don't know how GPS actually gets to that address either, but a little easier. So we gave them block numbers. And since then, actually, one of our competitors, Selbert Perkins, has done a street numbering and scheme like that for the United Arab Emirates, which is pretty amazing. I don't know if they've implemented it beyond Abu Dhabi at this point. So this job comes along. There's about to be a war out there. And I tell my wife, Eileen, I said, I'm going to go out there. This is going to be fun. Man, going out to Libya, right along the Mediterranean. She says, no, you can't go. And I said, yeah, I really want to go. And then it blows up, so it's good that I didn't go out there because we had another guy. Actually, why we didn't go out there is the Doug Allen story. Architects won't push you around. Okay, the architect goes out there. I don't go out there. The architect stays there for a month. I'm home with my wife. Next thing we did was we looked at all the parking structures, the color palettes. The Korean architects let us do a color palette for all the different buildings so you could recognize them because they all are identical. In Al Ain, we designed a entry into a portal into a safari park. So they're about to open a safari park right now. This is EDSA. Safari park that has 6 desert environments from around the world. In Doha, we designed a park along the Corniche, along the waterway. We designed the grand entryway where the emir would go on his annual camel parade through there, and then the wayfinding signage. In Dubai, one of our first projects was to design a series of media boards and a reception and a museum in the Dubai Financial Exchange. 2008 comes along, the project dies. 3 years ago, we get called back on this 1 kilometer long mall that goes through the Gateway project. We look at how do you get your wayfinding vertically and horizontally through this environment, and how do you find your way into each of the lobbies or the motor courts. In Saudi Arabia, we did a project with TVS, which was a series of 5 buildings that attached to a 6th building next to the Kaaba in Mecca. And the key approach here was wayfinding in terms of automotive wayfinding. When you come to the center, you've got to know which side of the street you're on because the building traverses a highway. So that's one thing. The second thing is you don't want to go to the wrong building because women are in that building, men are in the other building. The other cool thing about this project is TVS was asked to design the building to be quadruple occupancy by 4 complete strangers. So imagine going into a room with 4 complete strangers paying $600 a night for the privilege of, going to Mecca, of course. But it was an interesting thing where the population of the project goes from 12,000 to 50,000 for a number of weeks. In Saudi Arabia, we were fortunate to get a project with Emaar, the developer of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. They have a fairly large 168 square kilometer waterfront property that is changing the course of the Saudi economy in terms of developing ports, developing a downtown element. Norman Foster was hired, and he brought the bullet train to this site. It goes immediately to Riyadh, Jeddah, and Mecca. And our job was to set up a marketing center in Jeddah and eventually in Riyadh, taking an existing office building that they occupied, identifying it from the outside, and then developing a series of story nodes of how we tell the story of the property through models, through multimedia, through private meeting rooms. So it was essentially an experiential interior design commission that we received. This is currently being finished. We blew out a floor slab in the upper area to give a larger space, designed custom fixtures. And our China operation, the chairman bestowed upon us, the light was glowing upon me. Mac was very happy. He said, "Good job, Jan," and the chairman gave me a cigarette. And then we hired Jingjing last year to be our China office. But before then, in 2007, Matt Porter, who's in the audience, is a partner of ours on some other jobs, and Kathy Roberts brought us into a job that we were asked to do a design build. The first time we've ever done actually a design build. So we teamed up with our Korean partners, and we competed against 500-person firms that do these kinds of events. Our job was to design all the media that was handed out to inviting 400 of the best clients of UPS to entertain them for a 10-day period during the Olympics. We designed a beautiful case, commissioned a piece of art, and then we were asked to do what was called a description of an epic journey, as Matt Porter wrote, in terms of how we crafted this. So how we crafted it was with a modern Chinese vernacular, using icons from China, icons from the Olympics. And at that point, I was not certain that how I visited China in 2001, and it was so polluted at that point. I'm not sure I wanted to make a trip out there, but so Chung made all the trips out there, and everything was successful. His lungs have never been the same. But since then, they must have, they had these, they were shooting these things up at the clouds, and everything's kind of better now. It's okay. So in China, what's really cool about China for us is, in the U.S., all you architects out there, like Angelo, they just, at the Cooper Carey, they say, "I'll bring this guy in, he's going to do signage." And I think, we could do a lot more, Angelo. But he says, no, stay in that little box, would you? And in China, they say, "Give us a flat fee. You can do anything you want. As long as you can make $2 an hour in the end, but you can do whatever you want." I said, "Can I do the structural engineering too?" I said, "No, I didn't want to do that." So we wound up doing the master planning of some of these projects, at least the storyline and some of the architectural look and feel. The landscape conceptual design, the architectural facade design, interior design, and of course branding and wayfinding. So that's we learned about that because of working on one project, and we learned about the chaos. So some of the things that is a little unnerving is they staff up in China multitudes of teams and people, and they think that a job in the U.S., which traditionally takes 18 months to design and build, can be done in 4 months, which we're doing right now on one job. And it produces total chaos if somebody isn't running the show in terms of how we're doing these things. So we were able to get that position where I designed this building to be kind of the Miesian Art Deco version. So learning, full circle here, Crown Hall makes its appearance in Art Deco in China. And Chung worked on the logo. I think Kathy Roberts helped us. The second project with, we got the opportunity to work with 2 of the largest developers. So here we are, a 10-person firm, been granted the opportunity to work with 2 of the largest developers. They're used to working with 6,000-person firms, or they're used to working with SOM at 3,000, or AECOM at 50,000. And here we are, a 10-person firm, given the opportunity to design the branding that Kathy worked on here, designing the sculpture that we've never done up to that point. Designing the graphics, designing the signs itself in there. The wonderful thing about this project was that, and some of the things that we're doing over there, is there's still craft is still there. It's not all done on a CNC. There's still somebody hammering on something. This guy right here is painting this sign in a half an hour. I mean, Gary's shop was hired to do that. They were like working for 2 weeks. It was perfect, but it didn't fall apart later. But this guy, just Wang, he just went to town. By the time we were done, we could photograph the sign that you saw in the other shot. It was awesome. This is part of the hotel where we developed the sign system. Again, the craft in here, the beat copper that we just can't afford to do here. We can't afford that craft. You can see the fish scales on some of these pieces here. Opportunities to design marketing centers. This is in a first project in Nanchang, China, where we're doing several projects right now. We designed the landscape park that this sat in. The building itself was a green roof. So when you're in the apartments that are up at upper right, you couldn't see the building because it looked like part of the landscape. So a few years ago, 4 years ago, we got the opportunity to work with the same client that you saw in the previous one. They had brought in a famous firm, SWA, designed the landscape, and they came up with this faux Luzerne, Switzerland concept. The Chinese love Europe. They love traveling to Europe. Some people can't travel to Europe, so they create Europe. So we had the opportunity to design the accent elements for this project, the gateways, the signage, the architecture, the monumentation. So Chung and I and our spouses actually spent a couple weeks in Switzerland documenting various things that we could use in here to enhance these buildings. Because what happened is, I don't know if their internet is better now, but back then they still don't have Google, so I can't get email when I'm over there. They don't have Google, so you can't search like for 1,000 images, so you just search whatever the government puts on there. So it looked like worse like a children's theme park. It just didn't look good. So we started designing some of these storyline elements, gateway elements, the signage. Gary Flesher, who's in the audience, designed a lot of these buildings. We came up with color palettes for these various buildings. And John Ryan developed a series of these illustrations for William Tell or for Happy Dragons. We had a situation where all over Europe, you'll travel all over Europe and you see one of the things you got to learn when you travel somewhere is you got to learn about the cultural norms. So the Chinese, as it turned out, love dragons, and the Westerners, not so much. So we've designed a beautiful statue of St. George killing the dragon in the middle of the plaza. And they said, no, that's just not going to make it. Our people like dragons. You can't kill a dragon. Actually, it turned out on the next project that I'm going to show you is we put a dragon in there. They said, no. Our people, Westerners don't like dragons. Don't put that in there. And what do Westerners have to do with this? This is in China. So what happened is we started reading books about allegories in Switzerland. One of these allegories was this guy that got raised by this dragon. He was a happy pal with that dragon. So John rendered him on this building. So that was good. That's where St. George used to go, in the middle of that plaza. So we get this SketchUp file, which is like 600 gigabytes, and we had to get new computers because it couldn't move. So we got these new computers, and we were able to design a lot of this stuff. So we designed a statue to the founder of International Red Cross. Here's this guy that, Switzerland never fought a war. They're peaceful folks. This guy just came out. We showed him a rendering, and Mac remembers that. We had these drawings of this guy handing out Band-Aids. The guy's cool. Here's a Band-Aid. And they come back with this guy. This is our statue here, man. He's charging in the battle. I mean, what the hell is that? Come on, cut that out. Put him back handing out. He's handing out the Band-Aids now. So the other one was William Tell. And I mean, here's William Tell. That's the final one, by the way. Here's William Tell. He's kind of marching with his lance, and here's his, little Fritz over there, and he's going to throw that lance into Fritz's apple on his head. And I said, wait a minute. Are you, as a parent, would you condone that? I mean, really? So they changed it. Crossbow went back in. So then they didn't like the guy with the 2 geese that got drunk and sold his geese for some more liquor. They said, no, this is not nice. And they put it up there anyway. So we raised the building up a little bit so it didn't look like it was sinking, like Rick Periani loves those houses in Florida. They look like they're sinking because they don't have any plinth at all. This thing didn't have any plinth at all, so we raised it 4 risers. It made a difference. We designed kiosks. The one thing that we love to do is what I call architectural jewelry. Many years ago, architects like Louis Sullivan, probably ending up with Frank Lloyd Wright until Philip Johnson brought those scallywags into the Museum of Modern Art. All this stuff kind of went away. This is all just fruit on the cake. Angelo says, "What the hell am I? You're not walking out, are you? You can come on." So we did. We expanded on the church steeple. It became much taller. We added more realistic windows and doors. We designed the wells, designed the wayfinding system. And then the last opportunity we had there was to design a music hall series of sculptures that we designed at the entry. So the pieces that I created were at the bottom where we had them kind of modern and no naughty bits visible or anything. And they decided to make them real. So when they made them real, the naughty bits are visible, so they had to cover them up with some cloth, and it's just kind of flying in the wind. Hopefully they don't come off because it'll be naughty. Same client brings us in to design prototypes for buildings. They give us the plans for all of these buildings. We don't create the plans, so we're creating an Art Deco, a kind of neoclassic approach. And I feel pretty proud of some of these accomplishments that we've done over there for this series of buildings. Robert Stern did a project in Shanghai that we were brought in by the same developer. In this case, we were asked to do the wayfinding. We were asked to do the architectural jewelry. Chung designed the logo. We designed inlay patterns. We designed lanterns. We designed street furniture, gateways, clocks. And then we got to the interior of the building. The interior of the building was already designed as a marketing center, and they must have hired some disco group or something that did a disco last week. And here's this neoclassic building. And I go back to talking about context. A lot of these things are created context, but you still have context, and we have very respectful of context. So we said, what's the point here? So they create a disco approach to energize these people, and they go in there, and it's like, yeah, it's happening. I'm going to buy a $1 million condo. I said, well, why don't we take what Robert Stern has done and make it honor what he built there, because this is what you're buying. You're buying that level of quality in here. So we designed the furniture, we designed the art, We created the inlay pieces of built-in furniture as you came up to the upper level. We redesigned the total interior. They had this crazy Denny's-looking thing that was for, buying $1 million condo, and you're walking into this bus station where you're sitting cheek to cheek negotiating on your $2 million condo. How low can that be? So we designed a series of these living rooms where you can have a little bit of a private conversation. I don't want to pay $2 million. What are you going to... So we designed the canopies, the inlay pieces. You can see what happens is we design something, and 2 weeks later, this shows up on site. It's like unbelievable. The same with the desks or the doorways. The wonderful thing about this project was that because they hired Robert Stern to do the building, they did countless mock-ups. They don't do any drawings, but they did countless mock-ups. Like those doors right there, there were like six different prototypes for that. So you look at it on site, you look at it what it is, and if it's perfect, I hire that fabricator, or maybe they paid him off or something and they hired the wrong one. As you walk in through it, you get the story of Robert Stern, you get the story of the project, you come in, and then the signage was just absolutely gorgeous, just beautiful bronze. The lanterns were solid bronze, beautifully rendered. The planters, the garden, we designed a series of sculptures that Joyce Ryan worked with us on in terms of yoga and relaxing in the garden. And then we designed a series of public spaces. My wife, Eileen, wrote a series of poems in the garden. Opolis is a project that we did where we were able to redesign the first 2 levels of the building all the way around the whole project. It's about 20-story towers. And one of the things we did here, there's talking about storylines. We were able to develop a storyline for this project based on fictitious story of the opal, which is a stone. We developed this idea that these fairies possess this stone. The dragon guards the fairies until the fairies get really greedy and just get too many of these stones. The dragon takes them away. They're gone. And then they come back 10,000 years later. The client says, and it lands on our property. Yeah, they'll buy more stuff if it lands on our property. They did. It landed on their property. So this is good. It landed on your property. Then we went on with the story. We designed the path through the experience through the garden, and then some of the stills of that, including the fountain, the pavilions. And then this last few are just my experiments since Eileen bought me a ticket to Cherry Line Studios. I'm able to go there every week with my daughter Julie, and we create things from our imagination, or sometimes models. So I've been doing a lot of two-faced things. So that same piece here is two-faced, or that element on the right there is Lady Godiva on one side and Don Fernando on the other. And then that's Eileen and I over there. See how much we love each other? And then Julie did one piece on one side, and then I did the other side with the left side piece. And then this is some frustrations I have with clients that just push us around too much at the end over there. And this is just yesterday. I created this piece just a couple days ago. So this is, kind of worried, kind of wondering, stand up here, what are they going to think? God. And that's it. So one of the things that I want to talk about is that, I was really honored to receive the award from SEGD. I was very surprised because I didn't think we were doing the kind of graphics that traditional SEGD firms do. And one of the things we did with our firm, or I did professionally, is every time we use a stepping stone for what we do, we try to grow with every project to try to get a more complicated assignment, or if we're given a Chinese project, we can go up to the challenge and really do it. So we've had, supportive family, supportive friends, supportive collaborators, learned a lot from creative competitors, Deborah Sussman, she'll be sorely missed, and Massimo Vignelli, sorely missed. Just great people that I've learned from over the years. And I just love traveling the world and learning about all these things. So given those opportunities to do in the Middle East, to do work in in North Africa to do work in Europe. It's been an amazing gift, and 40 years. One thing I didn't tell you about was when I first came to Atlanta, I was 23, I think, or 24, so when John mentioned that story. So one of the things I had as an advantage is I didn't have any hair, so everyone thought I was, 50 or something. So I got all these awesome jobs. So I wasn't 50, I was only 24. So thank you, everyone, and best wishes on your projects, and thanks for the honor of letting me be up here and showing you this journey that we've had, and hopefully another 20 years of stuff to do. So.